thank you very much once again. And right now we're gonna start the last panel of the day, selling the future, digital transformation of entrepreneurship. And I'm going to invite the moderator, Alex. Welcome. Hey, Alex, thank you very much. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to invite the panelists, Vlad Zhovtenko. I hope I pronounced your name right.
Yeah.
And Jonas Soluk. Hi, guys. Welcome. Thank you for accepting our invitation. And well, let's kickstart the discussion with a little bit of intro. Vlad, tell us a little bit more about yourself, about Redtrack, the company you are coordinating.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of the event and for joining this discussion. So as for myself, I think I'm still of myself as a digital marketer. I do it since year 2000. And for now, I run Redtrack as founder and CEO. And Redtrack is ad tracking and conversion attribution company working for digital marketers. So basically fulfilling the dream for the product I never had, being in media buying shoes. And we are slowly evolving into automation, customer data platform, and all the other things that SME digital marketer wants to use. And I think I'm here because we have a relatively small team of 30 people, but that 30 people, since the start of COVID, now work across 9 countries. I did the math before the call, which I would say honestly makes some things easier, but some things way, way more complex. And I believe that whatever would be the outcome of next year's, a lot of employees, especially technology companies, would still work remotely. Yes, everybody will have in-person meetings. Yes, maybe we'll have central hubs, but overall we are in the future for the remote work. And a lot of things will change in terms of how you do business because of that. And I'm happy to share our insights, experience, feedback, good and bad parts of going that remote.
Thank you for the really nice coverage of what's happening on your end. Jonas, I know you're working. You are studying or researching. Correct me if I'm wrong. In the Department of Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Technology at the Stockholm School of Economics. But that's just the title. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing.
Thank you very much, Alex. So first of all, thank you for having me. I have to apologize a little bit because I'm currently in California and it's quite early in the morning actually here. So, but I will try to do my very best not to fall asleep during the panel, Alex. A little bit of an introduction regarding me. So I have 6.5 years experience in the manufacturing industry, working for a Japanese multinational enterprise dealing also with digitalization topics. Around 5 years of experience in consulting, working for KPMG. And yeah, I'm, as you said, a fellow at the House of Innovation at Stockholm School of Economics, researching digital transformation, digital entrepreneurship, especially in established organizations, in incumbent firms. So having a closer look on how these organizations, these established companies can successfully achieve a digital transformation, what capabilities they need in order to successfully go through this process. And how they can, for instance, develop digital products and business models. Currently, I'm a visiting scholar at Stanford University, at Stanford Engineering, where for the next 3 months, are able to engage in some collaborations. I'm very much looking forward to it. And that's also the reason why I'm in California right now. So that just a little bit as an introduction. I'm very much looking forward to the panel and to discuss together with you.
Okay, thank you both for shedding some light on your activity. Now, as well for the audience, but for us as well, because as human we differ from one to another. What does digital transformation mean to you?
I can start if you wish.
Any one of you.
For me, it's a very weird question. I'll be honest, because despite loving all things non-digital, I went online on the web in 1997, probably quite early. And since that time, I was constantly working for or with or running digital first companies. So, and it will be very interesting to just compare the experience of traditional business that actually have to adopt digital things and become digital in the wake of coming changes. So for me, whatever, for example, you just called digital was a natural set of things from the very beginning. Like even my very first job at Einstein in the reception, before that, I had to type the addresses on the typing machine on the envelopes. So first thing I did, I actually connected Word and started to print those at scale on the same envelopes, so typing manually. Because why should I type those 40 addresses if I can just print them out? I have the file already. So, and something I did all that many years ago, I think the example of digitalization, because for me, it's just applying technology as humans did throughout the whole history to make some things, let's say, better. Of course, it's not better in many cases, but the whole idea is that you apply technology to make things better. And whether this technology right now, we're talking digital because the evolution of technology moved into what we call digital space. It doesn't mean that amazing innovations don't happen in non-digital space, but everybody's focused on that. And digital is about, first and foremost, is communication and information exchange. So to sum it up, for me, digitalization is basically using the advances of technology to speed up and improve communication and information exchange. So that's how I see it.
Okay, that sounds like a very good definition that I personally stand by. So yeah, Jonas or Jonas?
So in Germany we would say Jonas, but it's totally fine. Alex,
Okay.
it's as you wish.
Okay, Jonas, what's your input on this? What does digital transformation mean to you?
So I agree with you, Vlad, that it's a super interesting and also important question to understand what digital transformation actually is, right? So for organizations, having all this buzz around a word like that, we definitely need to know what digital transformation is. And as a researcher, so what we do when we find questions like that interesting, of course, we set up research projects and we investigate this based on real life evidence and based on the evidence that occurs and can be derived from real life companies. And we did exactly that. We set up a research project based on German companies, established companies. We had a closer look on 15 case firms. We published this study last year in a journal, in a scholarly journal. And what we found there in this study regarding the digital transformation of companies is that, first of all, the digital transformation, that's important to highlight, it's not some kind of status or event where you snap your fingers and then you are digitally transformed. It's really a process that takes years, right? So that's very important. There's no final destination. Technologies are continuously evolving, and so is the digital transformation of these companies. And what we also found is that this process, it consists of different stages. So we especially found and revealed 3 stages. And depending on where you or how successful you are as a company in this digital transformation. You are either in these more early stages or phases of this digital transformation, or you are a little bit more advanced. And in these, especially in the first stage, companies mostly deal with their processes, with efficiency gains, with more established technologies. In this second stage, they more deal with their digital products and services, and the more successful companies in this third stage, they deal also with their digital business models, and they're really trying to outcompete their competition, their peers, with emerging technologies, with artificial intelligence, etc. But of course, this does not apply the adoption of AI, etc. To every company. It's really a spectrum that emerges here when it comes to digital transformation. And having in mind this process, having in mind that you really have different maturity levels, helps to understand that every company is different, and every company has other needs regarding specific technologies, also regarding cultural issues that arise. And I think that's it. And that's a little bit of our understanding, or my understanding, of digital transformation, also based on the studies we have conducted.
Okay. Now, there is this common belief or common trend that digital transformation means establishing better and deeper relationships with technology and with computers, with devices, with everything that's tech, and basically taking the human relationship to a more cold line. Have you seen this with your colleagues, or with your employees, with your friends? Is the digital transformation of a company, the process, is it affecting the direct relationship, the direct human relationship?
That's amazing question, because what we learned after going completely remote as a team, first time for almost a year and a half, and expanding from 2 countries to 8 in the process, and that there is nothing better than the actual human in-person interaction. And for me, and I can refer to a very, maybe very controversial statement right now, but there is a statement in Karl Marx about the required development of society for communism to come, and has nothing to do with all the history of the Soviet Union, where I was born, the terrible history, and all the war against Russia right now. It's actually about the society. And that requirement is that until humans invent machines that can replace their everyday efforts of the said humans to sustain their lives, earn for a living, and do etc., the communism is not possible. And of course, he said that many, many years ago. By now, everybody forgot about that very important statement. So for me, the same is with technologies. If used right, technologies actually create more opportunities for human interactions, because they free time. Now I don't have to do something for 1 hour. I can do something for 15 minutes and spend more time with the family. But what humans will do with that extra free time is the whole different question. Because all these devices are geared in such a way that they actually pretend you stay longer. Like there is no hard stop in social media. The difference between, I don't have a book at hand, it's in my backpack, but the difference between the book and the Facebook is that book actually has page end, it has chapter end, and then it has book end. So it has multiple hard stops. But the electronic devices and all technology is built especially for consumers in such a way that there is no hard stops. Like for Netflix, their biggest competitor is sleep, not Disney. And that's a well-known fact. So yes, technology can actually bring more opportunities for in-human interactions, because they will be more important. We're still humans within society. We're not like using surrogates. At least maybe it's because of my age, but I do believe in personal interactions. I still think they work better than Zoom. But Zoom saves time and saves money and creates opportunities for other human interactions if we as humans choose to go that way. And that's the beauty, that we always have a choice. Stay here or actually use this time and this efficiency for actual interactions. Same for business. Automation, all this digitalization is geared towards remove routine and repetitive work. First and foremost, meaning that people who use this technology, they have time for more creative work, and they can leverage this time for that creative work. Now, would they do it? Would they be happy of being more creative and having time for being more creative? Because for me, it's a big question. You cannot force creativity. So at that time, meaning either people would just work more hours, being more efficiency, able to handle more tasks at the same routine level. So, or they'll just procrastinate, or they'll use it to creative things. So in digital marketing, that's where I come from. Each and every marketer embraces the technology because they prefer to find new angles, work on new creatives, find new campaigns, design new products, not copy-paste data. That definitely works. As for the other industries, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, indeed. I really like the book and Facebook comparison. Yeah, digital means are technically with, as you said, with no hard stops, with no actual ending. You have to manually log out, or you have to psychologically force yourself to quit something, compared to an actual physical interaction with that. So yeah, that's food for thought. I never looked at this from this point of view.
And you actually not only competing, you're competing with trained psychologists who design all those devices, so they don't quit. You stay there, because that's how our companies earn money. So it's quite a challenge for many people.
Yeah, indeed. Jonas, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so I can absolutely agree with everything that Vlad said. And I think, of course, obviously the pandemic pushed so much forward in that regard, also for the companies that really struggle to use digital technologies in order to facilitate communication, transparency, engagement within their staff. So but anyway, it's still the tip of the iceberg, right? So there's so much more ahead of us when it comes to automation, augmentation, etc. Also everything what Vlad said. So we are standing in front of a huge development, especially with also these emerging technologies that I also briefly mentioned earlier, artificial intelligence, etc. Of course, these are sometimes just buzzwords, but they also have a real life impact on companies. They have right now, today, they already have this impact, and it's not just something for the future the companies should deal with in the next couple of years. It's really something that companies who want to stay competitive should really try to reflect on. And with that being said, I totally agree with Vlad and see still a huge development ongoing in this whole regard.
Okay, now you mentioned companies. I want to change tracks a little bit to pique the interest of the B2B listeners right now. Is digital transformation a good step for both big and small companies? How are these two where are the major differences, except obviously the scale of the process? But are there other steps to be taken? Are there different stages to accomplish?
Maybe let's change sides. So let Jonas speak first.
Sounds good. A super important question, because we have so many small and medium-sized enterprises in Europe, all around the world, right? So it's utmost important also to reflect a little bit on their characteristics and idiosyncrasies, and what they also need, maybe as some kind of support, guidance when it comes to digital transformation. So first of all, are there any differences? Yes, I would say there are differences. Maybe this general idea of having this process, right? Maybe this is something similar. This is something we can apply for both small and larger companies. However, when it comes to the specific barriers and enablers of this digital transformation process, so the very practical hurdles, impediments the companies have to face while going through this process, I think there are a lot of differences. Let me give you one or two examples. For instance, small companies, of course, have, compared to their larger counterparts, have resource constraints, right? So, for instance, Siemens company, Siemens AG, has much more financial resources, human resources, also relationships, social capital, network ties, international ties to different institutions, partners that smaller companies obviously do not have, right? But these resources, of course, help larger companies to successfully overcome certain challenges that are associated with their digital transformation. So how can smaller companies maybe tackle this barrier and address this challenge? What we see, also based on our research, but what I also see when talking to practitioners, is that cooperation and collaboration plays a super important and very, very crucial role. So coming together with our other small or medium-sized enterprises, joining forces when it comes to digital transformation, joining institutions that are made to share knowledge, to share experiences, to share lessons learned when it comes to the digital transformation and smaller enterprises. That's super important, very, very interesting and helpful for the companies, because it does not necessarily cost a lot of money, but maybe it costs in the sense of a first step, going in that direction, approaching these kind of institutions, hubs. For instance, in Germany, in the recent years, in recent months and recent time, we really had some great initiatives in that regard. For instance, the so-called Maschinenraum in Berlin, or the Unternehmertum in Munich, who really succeed in providing a platform for small and medium-sized enterprises to facilitate collaboration and to support these kind of companies in order to succeed in their digital transformation.
Okay, I really understand what you're saying, but for example, isn't it proportional? Like you said, okay, big companies have much more resources in terms of, well, human, financial, relationship, everything. But aren't they consuming more resources, or isn't the consumed resources, isn't it on the same scale with the income of resources? I mean, if you're smaller, you consume less, so you don't have to have that amount of resource.
Yeah, but speaking about digital transformation, we really see that you have this need for very specific knowledge within your company, right? Let us come back to the example of artificial intelligence. A small-sized enterprise cannot have, it normally does not have, I don't know, a few AI expert in their team, right? They cannot really afford it unless they're an AI-focused business and have a business model like that. But normally, let's say a small manufacturing firm, that's not really possible, right? A larger company, of course, is in a position to have these specialists inside their organization. And of course, also tackling very specific business challenges in the context of digital transformation, they are able to use this specialist knowledge in order to overcome certain challenges. But this is just one example. Of course, there are also other very idiosyncratic barriers and enablers when it comes to small enterprises. For instance, the very dominant role of the founders and also the owners, that can be a good thing, that can also be a barrier. And when it comes to culture, when it comes to mindset, when it comes to maybe also some paternalistic leadership styles in more established organizations. But it's definitely super important to consider these unique characteristics.
I see. Vlad, I'm going back a little bit. I'll keep in mind all this corporate stuff because I got some questions prepared on this. But I want to get back a little bit on the book versus Facebook thing. Do you think that social media could be used as a bridge to digital transformation, or social media usage is more a byproduct of digital transformation? How do you see this?
Well, the biggest question here, let's start with discussing what is social media. So how would you define social media?
I didn't want to get there.
Yeah, because as soon as you ask the question, I can turn it the other way around. Like some things are definitely byproduct. But again, social media is just a tool. What is not a tool is the content that social media is delivering and the way it delivers content. Like, can TikTok be a means of digital transformation? Or YouTube or Facebook? Yes. If you would get content to help you make the transformation from those medias, then it can be a tool. If you just use it to scroll past something to spend time, well, that's a byproduct. It's for me, all those things are tools that can be applied to the needs of the person who uses the tools. And that need can go in line with the intended use or go against the intended use. Doesn't really matter. As long as you use the tools, you get the result, if you can do that. So social media is a great enabler because I can I can use multiple, but let's say still probably social media, like I can talk to people across the world. That enables my transformation. If not for like all those messengers, how could have people work in our company in Brazil? That's of course. Can you name Slack that or Zoom that we built our internal company communications around social media? I can, because for our small, those 30+ people society, that's a tool of communication. That's the media we use to exchange information every day. So in that sense, it's also social media. And that's why, of course, Facebook is trying to enter the same game with their business tools. Never use them, honestly, because I don't see Facebook as such a tool. Maybe some other guys. And same with VR. I think that the whole Meta initiative, they maybe they do the right direction, but they present it totally wrong. I don't expect people to come as digital avatars for digital meetings in digital rooms. We already have Zoom. I mean, you can replace your image in Zoom and make it 3D, nothing will change. For me, it's about using those tools to enable communication, because if 3 engineers would come into a digital room to discuss and work together on some virtual design that they would not be able to do otherwise than in person, then it's enabling the transformation. And then it's great, then it's Metaverse. But for what they showed right now is just Zoom in 3D with Waveverse connection of the same Slack. So yes, to answer your question, for me, and I think for many people, social media is either the tool or the carrier of the information. And we as humans design how we use it, as a byproduct or to enable that transformation. A lot of businesses are launching off Instagram, for example, or off Facebook, or something else, where people don't have zero physical presence, zero or brick and mortar stores, they sell products. So is it a digital transformation? I think yes, because now they can sell something they produce, or in the content they produce, the non-intangible goods or services worldwide. 20 years ago, it was close to impossible.
Okay, now, if we are to stick to what you said, that social media could be a bridge to transfer information, let's say that this information is called data, because that's happening as well. In some cases, data transactions are a bypass product. In some cases, are the actual purpose of that. Let's talk about a little bit about data consolidation and conversion. I know that this is a question more on your field of activities. So can you explain this a little bit so that the average consumer of technology can understand what's happening?
Well, I can probably try to explain it to regular consumer of the technologies, but only from the marketing standpoint.
Yeah,
and the explanation is very easy. I have seen the evolution of digital marketing, and consider this. Some 20 years ago, we had ad networks, referral programs, and emails. Okay, 3 channels. Then we got paid search. Then we got, I don't know what happened first, native or programmatic. Then we got social. Then we got something else. Then we got so the number of digital channels is increasing, and people, because of the digital transformation we just mentioned, are jumping into invest their money into buying ads to promote their digital or physical products. What it leads to is that a lot of channels and a lot of products, a lot of people doing marketing, and now or across many organizations, we deal with those cases, and even for big enterprises, like they have a team of 15 people doing digital marketing. All those 15 people actually use different tools for their day-to-day operations, and in the end, companies invest more on top just to consolidate data and start to pay money either for Tableau or then for Tableau and Funnel.io supermetrics that will ingest the data, collect the data, push the data in third party, and then show the dashboard. 15 years ago, and people were doing it in Excel, and some people still do this in Excel because they don't have, like Jonas mentioned, all those engineers, all those programmers, developers to consolidate their data and pay for Tableau and something else. So what they do, they cut and paste. Or they used to rely on like single tool to promote their business, which is not always working. Facebook is best example. A lot of people start to say, hey, Facebook doesn't give us as accurate data as it was because of iOS 14. And iOS 14 happens because everybody is consuming data about our daily activities to make money without our consent. And I don't care, I don't worry, because I get targeted ads. Some people care about how their data is consumed, and that's their right, and that's why government protect them. So what happens is, and what our company is building for our niche, and I think something similar happens in other areas too, is that we are building a platform for digital marketers in companies that don't have the abundance of their own resources to consolidate their data and activities in one place from the very beginning, and to make sure they own the data about their activities and about their websites. Because right now, if you operate a website and you run a couple of ad networks and use some tracking tools, observation tools, etc., I can tell you that each of those companies whose code you would put on your own website owns the data about your visitors, but not you. Everybody, but not the owner of the website. The only thing he or that particular owner can do is, at least in Europe, say, hey, just don't track my visitors if they don't agree. That's the only thing he can do. He cannot even own the data unless he has his own technologies. So what will be changing, and sorry, maybe we're going a bit too far into digital marketing, is that the companies who run ads will own not the networks like Facebook, because that famous phrase, Senator, we run ads, is bullshit. The customers of Facebook run ads. Facebook is just a big, huge pipe which delivers the ads from one person, me as advertiser, to the eyes of everybody else. Facebook is a pipe that collects a tax for delivering ads from one person to another. Ads are run by advertisers. So the data about how they run ads should also belong to advertisers or to customers, but not to the pipe that connects them together.
That's correct.
And that's how the market is changing. And that's what, for example, our company is built in to allow advertisers to own their data. So, and this is whole talks about there's a third-party cookies, IS-14. This whole talks is about who actually owns the data. Because the only person who doesn't own the data is us with the internet. Everybody else collects data about us. Everybody else knows what we do. And we might get really surprised. I'm constantly surprised how Google sees my profile and those suggestions about my interests based on what sites I visit. Say, wow, I never thought he would consider I would like this content and actually don't like it, so check it out. But some insights are surprising. So the transformation that you mentioned about and the data, everything we do right now in digital world, from web to actually all the devices we wear. Like I don't have any, I don't like them, but people have those devices. Your fitness tracker has the data. Technically, you can own this data. Technically, you can share this data with somebody else. And technically, if your fitness tracker records that you live active life, your health insurance could have less premium because you're unlikely to get ill. And we are just starting to scratch the surface of that question of the data we generate digitally through our daily interaction with technology, and who in the end owns it. And that's why all those talks about Web 3.0, when the producers of the data, like you, own your data about your health state, and you decide whom to share it with. For now, you don't. Maybe you just decide whom to share with it publicly, but you still don't own your data.
Well, this would have been an interesting turn of events if you would have been participating in the ownership in the Metaverse panel we had earlier. I don't know if Conrad is still online with us, but yeah, it's something to take into consideration. Now, I want to switch a little bit to Jonas about, but still in the data field. Now, what do you think? I'm considering that based on your research or projects you were working on, you maybe have an answer to this. What could an average company do with the data they collect through or after a digital transformation process, but they usually don't? I mean, what use of data do you see that is constantly not taken advantage of? I don't like the phrasing of this, but I hope you got the question.
So I just spoke with a company, a manufacturing firm, a German manufacturing firm yesterday. One of my case firms in a research project, and I think they can act as quite a good example. Of course, they use digital tools. They're doing some D&A stuff, right? Data analytics. So regarding their production, they also have some Industry 4.0 approaches, some approaches, right? So not fully fledged, but at least some first initial steps. They also do a little bit in sales and marketing, etc. However, overall, summing up the whole picture, the use of data, it's still totally underexploited. Let's say it like that, right? So if they want to really succeed in their digital endeavors, they would have to go much more in depth when it comes to the usage, to the leverage, the exploitation of the data they have. So they have much more production data they could have used. They could do much more in the field of digital marketing, what Vlad just said. They could do much more in the field of procurement, supply chain management, etc. Right? So, creating efficiency gains regarding their overall processes, but also developing products, services that are based on data insights, empirical insights, market insights, of course, data-driven market insights. That is something that is totally underexploited, and definitely a field where this company, which now acts a little bit as an average firm here in this example, could further engage with. So with most of the established companies I'm working with, but this is also my impression from many other firms, there's still a lot to do. As we mentioned before, as we discussed before, there are certain barriers that impeded these firms and created some obstacles, and are also the reason why the companies are still in that stage of the digital transformation process and not further ahead. But in regard to future discussions, also regard the sparing these companies receive, I'm hopeful, and I'm positive that these developments, of course, will further evolve, further develop, and cause in due course these companies to make use of these opportunities and to really make their own overall business and business model much more data-driven than it is now.
I see. But what are the security risks involved in switching to digital? I mean, of course, there is a whole universe of discussions on this topic, but what are the most common risks that a small or medium company, for example, is taking when they decide to switch to digital?
So let me start on that, and maybe Vlad, you have also some thoughts in that regard. So I would say we have to differentiate a little bit between the subjective and the objective risks. So talking to established companies, for instance, in Germany, there are many concerns when it comes to cybersecurity and also data breaches, stuff like that, right? So for instance, many firms are quite hesitant to use cloud-based technologies, applications, because they fear that the data is not, in my own basement, it is somewhere else, in maybe another country, etc. But this also has a lot to do with emotions, right? Of course, there are also quite practical, objective risks that have to be considered. However, there's also a huge emotional component attached to that. Coming to the real risks and letting beside these more subjective emotional facets of the discussion, of course, we see that there are data breaches on a regular basis. We see that privacy concerns, of course, are not only a theoretical concept, but can be very practical, unfortunately. And so, of course, this whole digital transformation has to be supported by a cybersecurity concept within the firm. They have to be guided by also the question how you can protect your own data, and also, of course, the data that you apply or leverage from your business partners. So that's a super important discussion that definitely has to be considered in practice.
Vlad, what's your take on this from the marketer side of you?
I can enter from the SMB and business running SaaS operations for its customer side of view, and I would say that what's happening with all the digital things is that the human appetite runs way beyond or faster than the actually developed technology capabilities, and that's good. It's just we always forget that the human society had, let's say, 350 years to design security standards for industry or manufacturing, when the first industry-sized manufacturing started 350 years ago, I think, maybe 400. And for digital, we had only, 20 years at best to design the practices and standards. And through all this time, digital evolved so much that something that was good 10 years ago is definitely not good now. So for me, it all comes to that it's just another way of doing business. And all the societies and the economies, they just had not accumulated sufficient time in years to establish practices and standards. So we are all pioneers in digital, whatever somebody wants to say. Meaning that when it's some pioneers, that the risk of a lot of uncertainties, but a lot of gains. Right now, of course, it's probably has a lot of risks. Like AWS in US went down on East Coast. All the big businesses went down together with them. They planned for contingency. They never planned for AWS going down. If you don't have a backup service, for example, and the power goes down, even your colocation provider or some part blows up, you don't have backup, you go out of the web, you don't work, you lose money and you lose customers. But the same was many years ago when you had a bad season, you don't get crops, you get hungry, you may die out of starvation. But as society, we learn to deal with that risks. We learn to organize our agricultural production, then our manufacturing. Now we are learning to organize our digital world. It changes so fast, and it's also natural that people believe we are doing nothing. No, a lot of people doing a lot of things. But the evolution is not staying in place, doesn't wait for all those people. So we deal with risks. And that's why for bigger companies, they have all those tons of compliances. For small companies, they're just more flexible to handle those risks and being just aware of what they do. So that's how I see it. Never, I don't see that the security catches up with the development of technologies in the near future. And that's the same issue that you discussed in the previous talk about the metaverse and impersonalization stuff. Nobody knows until it happens, and we'll find a way to solve it.
Okay. Thank you very much, both Jonas and Vlad. Being the last panel, we had the luxury of not being pressed by the time, but still, we have to wrap it up, even if we don't necessarily want it, because I know there are a few things that are still to be discussed and still to be tackled. But I want to thank you again for taking our invitation. Thank you, Jonas, for not falling asleep. I know it's really, really early in the morning over there. Thank you both for the input. Thank you to our whole audience for listening to us, for watching us. And stay tuned. We are currently preparing the Tech Meetup Baltics in Vilnius. It's going to take place on the 11th of May, and it's going to be our first hybrid event for 2022. We are going to mix live attendance with digital attendance. Speaking of digital transformation, it's not our first rodeo in this kind of event, but it's the first one for 2022. So stay tuned for everything that's coming up. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.